So once again, thank you for inviting me. I've watched a few of the Talking Thursdays, and really interesting. And I thought my work is online and on Instagram, and I wouldn't normally do this stuff, but I said yes because I do like your work and I appreciate you asking me. But I'm not very fond of talking about myself. But I thought I saw a few presentations that started with where people came from, literally, in terms of work, in terms of private life, and because I think that is connected in my case, I do the same. Why not do the whole full Monty? So I'll show you things that are more or less private. I'll show you drafts. I even start with where I come from, what brought me to graphic design. I always wanted to become an architect, and then at the age of 11, 12, I thought, no, that would be graphic design. Thank you very much. And the whole presentation is structured by where I have been and traveled to, because you might know I'm from Germany. Bocholt, that's not known to you, I guess. And I started in Amsterdam in Holland, and then moved to London half a month after my graduation. After 10 years, moved to Amsterdam, and I even had business in New York. So, and I promise, this is the most spectacularly gloaty slide in the whole presentation. So let's swiftly move on to where I come from. So that's Bocholt in Germany, next to the Dutch border, and a little impression of my inner city life in Bocholt. But it's a very small town, and I always knew I kind of had to leave as soon as humanly possible for various reasons. And my connection to the outside world back then, I'm of a certain age, so we didn't have internet then. So our only window into the world for me was pop music. And this is a scene from a famous video, Western Girls. And that was my connection to A, music, B, London, C, graphic design. At the age of 12, I thought, I want to do this. I want to do record sleeves. You remember the 80s being all colorful and big and much of a muchness. And then this is in the record store, and I thought, what's this? And I want this. And it was also the times of Frank Goes to Hollywood, and the times of sampling started, sampling culture, sampling literally voices. Yeah, the age of sampling, and I got into that big time in terms of visuals and sound. So what you're about to hear, stuff like that, you might hear back later in the presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me present Frankie Goes to Hollywood, possibly the most important thing this side of the world. Oh yeah, well,
I've obviously edited that to half a minute. But let's move on to my study in the east of Holland, actually. It's called the Archie, and that's the very futuristic looking building. And I kind of lived there for 4 years, which was much fun. And I got into typography quite a bit in those 4 years. And again, as I said, being of a certain age, we could kind of book in computers for an hour, and the rest was just hand-drawn typography, etc., which was very exciting, which I sometimes still try to do. My final exam was about aging, and for my final exam I did a film on aging. Oh, I forgot that this was the student award for packaging, and that got me my first Macintosh. And on the base of my first Macintosh, G3, thank you very much, Tower, the brown dots, I made a film on aging. And during that time, my tutor on the very left, he just said, you always talk about London and how you want to move to London. And he said, you just have to go there for placements and etc. And there I went with my third year student portfolio to London, phoned people and spoke to loads of agencies like Me Company, Mark Farrow, of course, who forgot to mention on the Petro Boy sleeve, Intro, Saatchi, everybody, and also companies that I later worked at. So my connection to London was made. And my final exam was again about quotes and sampling words and notions. Louis Bourgeois said, "I'm a foreigner to myself, and I translate myself by quoting all the others." And that was basically the basis of my whole exam, sampling other people's words and sounds and images, and thereby making them my own. So these are the samples that I used, the word fragments that I used, and you go into that door and then you see the movie, which I spare you. It's 12 minutes. But it was also available on CD-ROM. So there you go. And then came London half a month later, and I worked at Design, SEA Design. There's only going to be one slide on that, because obviously it's their work, but these are the projects I worked on. The GF Smith paper sample box sets that we designed. I worked for Tate Modern, Paper Merchants, and photographer John Ross. My first ever assignment was Female Nudes by Rankin, which was fun to do, and a year later I got Male Nudes, another book. Worked for EMI, the annual report, and back to music, the Smiths and beyond, which was very exciting, of course, because I met and worked with Kevin Cummins, the photographer that did lots of NME stuff, Melody Maker, and followed the Smiths and Morrissey and beyond, electronic, etc. Johnny Marr, with his 35mm black and white camera, which was, you know, a good thing. Then I started to go self-employed and worked for 2 days at Ico Design Company in London that also still exists. Property brochures, but then in a different kind of way as a newspaper. Charity work, hoardings at the River Thames, travel guides, etc. And then I moved to Amsterdam after 10 years. Being self-employed, set up my own office. That's where I'm sitting now. And I'm not going to show you lots of work of mine, because as I said, some of it is online and newer stuff isn't, so that's what I'm about to show you. This is for a coaching agency in Amsterdam, stamps that we did. Lots of messages that relate to coaching and also to the way probably I work. I'm gonna give you a break for 2 minutes. There's a little film, a backdrop projection of a modern dance performance. So imagine you're in a theater and it's pitch black and only sees the type and the poem that I was given to introduce the modern dance performance. And it's 2 minutes, so. Then the performance started, and what you heard, by the way, was a guide audio track that I did of different pieces of classical music. So here and there you could have maybe heard a bit of a rough edit, but that was just the guide audio. So then we stay in Amsterdam. A few projects I did with Marjolein Annegaan, a photographer, that are kind of falling into the socially responsible corner of life. This is Young and Gay Coming Out, a book we did in the exhibition. The stigma book on people that hadn't had their coming out about their HIV status yet. So there's portraits that are portraits where people are not recognizable, so I flipped the type accordingly. And the third project we worked on recently was racism in the Netherlands, which is still a big subject. And then we have, I do work a lot for LGBT courses, and I did 3 years of Pride Amsterdam, which is like Pride London, the annual 1 week events throughout the whole city, with the flags, etc. This is how it turned out. It does still appear every year, bits and pieces that are still valid and without dates. Always referencing pop culture, as I said before. The second year was about heroes, so I took David Bowie and my heroes and other people's heroes as a basis for that. This is kind of like in front of Buckingham Palace. It's the Dam in Amsterdam, the final big concert there. And as you see, everything's sorted by type. And Opening Doors in London is LGBT for the elder generation that kind of have to go back into the closet because they're surrounded by elderly people that are not in tune with today's standards of LGBT communities. And again, surprise, I took pop quotes, Jesus Loves You, Boy George, Generations of Love, for their social media campaign. So we have their branding, but always statements derived from songs that everybody kind of knows, and that trigger some associations, etc. So it's about funding, so everything counts. Depeche Mode, I Feel Loved in the Summer, Yesterday, etc. Then we go to a photographer in Amsterdam called Maarten Schrets, who I did this book with, and his own book. He's a photographer that comes from the commercial side in the 90s and now does his own projects following artists all over the world. Also did a book with him on Andre Kuipers, which is our only or our most famous spaceman in Holland. And we got the pictures for the book on the right whilst he was in space, which was quite exciting. So every day we got like the latest digital files from outer space, which was bizarre, but nice. Landscape architecture is Stephen Delver. My kind of longest client, 15 years or something. We're just rebranding his whole identity, so that's to be followed up very soon. Fred from Odette, a restaurant, and also bed and breakfast. Because of the Odette, I did the circle, and on the right hand side, it's self-explanatory, the bed and breakfast hanger with information. A school in Holland, or a collection of schools called Erasmus, and they really wanted to have Erasmus, the philosopher, as a logo, and I thankfully convinced them that if we are 3 schools under one roof, the letter E represents just that. It's 3 bars collected into one big E, Erasmus. So they went for that, which I was quite surprised about, but very happily surprised. Orange Babies, it's another charity organization in Amsterdam. They have an annual charity ball, and I do all the graphics for those things. It's a double-edged sword. It's a charity for mothers in Africa that have children with HIV, Um, and then you find yourself every year, once a year, on an annual ball where they have to get the funds in. And it's all about big money, and the booklet is very luxurious. So you think, okay, charity and lush print work, but it does work because everybody chips in. And you get free reign basically. And sometimes the fashion designer that does the show is inspiration for the holographics. We did a campaign with KLM, of course, being in Holland, on their food packaging, etc. But then came Orange Telecom, who, I mean, the logo, by the way, the Orange Babies logo on the left, that's done by Experimental Jet Set in 1999 or something, or 2000. And there were before Orange Telecom, but, you know, Orange Telecom had all of a sudden after 10 years kind of said you can't use your logo anymore, so I had to rebrand something which I thought was a perfect branding, Helvetica bold, full stop. What's not to like? So I had to rebrand that, which was a bit of a nightmare. So I went everything different, like capital letters, thinner letters, and now available in full color. So the distance to Orange Telecom now couldn't be any bigger. And as I said, I kind of exclusively work with type and try to make letters and shapes. And last but not least, the landscape architect I'm working for right now, and this is the first draft for their dynamic type, which is obviously no secret to you guys. Beroepsvereniging van how do I translate that? It's about landscape architecture and urban planning. And then a self-initiated project between a photographer, Martin Mulder, who lives in New York, a interior architect called Steph Bakker, and myself. We released this book last year called Interval. It's about the power of silence and Ma, and I'm kind of showing this because there's almost no type. I wanted the book just images, because not using type is also a typographical decision, I think. So you have just the images, and it's a kind of unpretentiously bound, self-bound block of paper with images in them, almost like a notebook. So it's a working document. So the images, you can throw them around if you like. We went through Martine Mulder's archive and zoomed into her photography just to get abstract shapes, light, darkness, everything. So you can enter the book wherever you want. It's more a mood than a cohesive story, which isn't exactly true because that is a cohesive story. And there was a launch in Amsterdam and also in New York last year. And speaking of New York, we now move over to, sorry, I never see which screen is next, so I have to kind of jump a little here and there. Rammstein, the German rock pop band, they sold out, which is crazy, 3 nights in a row in Madison Square Garden. It's crazy because they're German, native Germans singing in German. No German band ever sells out Madison Square Garden, let alone 3 times in a row. So there was a big documentary about that in Germany, and I got the job to do the intro of that. And as I said before, I like my sampling, and I'm also in kind of moving closer and closer to the audio world as we speak. And although they have a song called America, and I thought, well, they're probably going to use that, I made my own kind of Rammstein soundtrack underneath my graphics. All sounds that you're about to hear are from Rammstein's catalog, but they're just sounds and tones that I sampled, that I got out of their music. Thinking that will sink, that will tank, because they'll probably say, let's use America instead. But they bought it, so this is another 1.5 minutes of audiovisual Good. And with Rammstein, we kind of moved to New York, and I am the co-founder of a concept store in New York, which I worked for 5 years. But during COVID, I kind of decided music, making graphics, having my own office, and having a store in New York might be a bit much. So we parted ways amicably. We still talk to each other, so that's good. But the whole concept was, of course, typography. Maison 10 is a store name, and I could create any word I want to in my Maison 10 grid, which you're about to see. So the letters move, the images in the back with a dark shade. You can spot myself with blonde hair even, if you like. So these, because I had to do everything from here and via social media, and back then Instagram was, that's why it had square, but it kind of moved to whatever format these days. But my basic idea was squared, 3x3 typography grid. We did a collaboration with COS in LA, which was exciting. But as I said, it wasn't viable to sit in Amsterdam and have a store in New York. So the store still exists. If you ever in New York, say hello to Tom and Henri, my friends from London days. And we go back to my school, this time as a teacher in east of Holland, because I do that as well. So really the concept store had to go. That's a new building, we moved in the meantime. And of course, all my focus is on typography when I teach students. And I have the international classes, first to fourth year. And we do, I try to get them out of the machine, out of the 16:9 frame that we're looking at now, ironically, but to make them realize typography is not just a pull down menu and then get your Arial, which you should never do, or other typefaces. And that type is shape, and the blocks of types and paragraphs, I don't need to explain that to you guys, are shapes and forms, and they're not just text. They're just, I mean, text will always be there, whatever happens in the future, social media and what have you, and artificial intelligence. There's always going to be bits and pieces that we have to read, so there will be type. So I exclusively work with type with them, and I start off with black and white, and they look at me like I'm crazy, but some people jump on, and of course we go into the world of music graphics, starting off with music packaging, but of course these days music packaging is just one bit of the whole music campaign, up until and including Spotify canvases. And I bring hundreds or so of my own collection, show them the 12-inch, the 7-inch, the 10-inch, the cassettes, the CD versions, to make them realize, because kind of they're all born after 2000, so their parents might know what CDs are, but and it's you know the excitement of having a vinyl record and traveling through the gatefold sleeve and the inner sleeve. It's a whole journey, which kind of got lost, and might come back now with through the powers of canvases, and we will have moving album artworks soon, I guess, because it's technically possible. So why not do that? You have your usual suspects there. I always start off with my Pet Shop Boys Please story with a small stamp in the middle. And the way we used to have 12-inch records and remix 12-inch and cassette 12-inch, you see hard and remix there. And that concludes almost my presentation with my own music, which I'm doing and which will come out this year. Or early next year. No, let's say this year. And my logo, because I do everything myself, is one bar. So this is a little preview that's gonna be also the title of the first EP. But what I also do is remix other people's work, and I also DJ. So I still laugh when I say that, but I DJ. No laughing matter. And of course, when I DJ, that has to have some branding. So, and when I do a remix, that obviously has to do, I don't have to be recognizable, by the way. It has to come with a kind of cassette compilation on Spotify. So I have 40 songs that I really like when a remix of mine comes out or something. And that has to be announced on social media, of course, with a graphic campaign around it, like this. So, because I have nothing else to do, I do these little announcements to say there's a remix out, or in the next 2 or 3 clips, my evening when I DJ is called Pop Snob, because somebody in England called me Pop Snob all the time, and I thought that's quite a nice name for an evening of because I play pop music, not trance or techno or something, and not rock. So the evenings are called Pop Stop, and they're in a bar called Prick in Amsterdam. And I do these clips where again I take I sample visuals and music, but I kind of put different bits of music together. And in this example, sometimes even get a little political side note sneaked in. So these are like 30 seconds.
It's the ideal way to order the world. Fuck the morals. Does it make any money? Guns are still running the world. Guns are still running the world.
Now, I don't know whether that's possible on YouTube. Sorry about the language. Parental advisory sticker. perhaps. But of course, I'm not. This was just in the days just before COVID, and Brexit had just happened. And I don't want to go into detail, but I don't think Brexit is such a good idea. So this was my little snide at that. I There's a couple of clips, but I'm running out of time, I guess. So I'm kind of having fun with like four different songs blended into one that go over 5 decades of pop music. And then for one social media post. I skipped the next one maybe. That was Running Up That Hill became #1, so we had to celebrate that. A little American political thing coming up.
God help us as a nation.
That was just because there was a big hoo-ha in America, in California, about the school class that went to see Michelangelo, and parents wouldn't have it because the man is naked. So there was a big discussion. So I thought I'm gonna pick the campus song that I can think of and put it underneath Michelangelo and have a few commentaries underneath it. And last but not least, and with that, I do thank you. I just think that the clips, they are not embedded in a professional kind of client situation, but to me they're equally as important. And they kind of keep the fun in my work as well, and they also inform my work, my professional work.
I don't even know where to start. I do have a question. Is there kind of, it seems like a very obvious question, but is there an artist that's alive or has passed that you really wish that you'd had an opportunity to be able to collaborate with? And by artist, I mean a musical artist.
You say musical artist or any?
Yeah, a musical artist.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many. Yeah, but collaborate. I mean, I met a few in London. I mean, London is still the place. It's insane how your island creates the best music still on this whole planet. Why is that? I don't know. It's just it's a cultural thing. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but it's still crazy. And I'm super jealous that you had Top of the Pops, and I didn't. I knew about it, and we had Formula One, which was just videos, which was already great, but you know, without YouTube. But there's so many artists. I met Pet Boys twice, but me being me, I didn't dare to say a word. I even asked the singer to repeat his first name as if I didn't know his first name. I said, "Oh, pardon," only to avoid being exposed as a super fan, which might go down the crazy loophole. So I'm not good with. I'm so starstruck. I was in an elevator in the Royal Albert Hall listening to Pet Shop Boys when they did their classical concert with so many piece orchestra, which was gorgeous. And on the way out, I was in an elevator with Holly Johnson, or Frankie. And I mean, he's one of my biggest heroes, but I just ended up just standing next to him being silent. So I'm not a good collaborator. But I will, next time I see these people, I will say hello. It's just, I mean, they'll probably like it. But no, collaboration is, I seldomly do that. And I do realize when I teach now, which is a kind of a collaboration sometimes, or you guide people, it's super interesting. I would have never imagined being a teacher is so rewarding, for my own work as well, or for the process. Just like making music is the same as making graphics. It comes from the same basis. It just it made me dare much more in graphics as well, since I started making music again and remixes and all that. So yeah, I have 3 alter egos now, but I think maybe I'm gonna wrap them up into one again, because why hide? Why have that? But I mean, I make music. That's not embarrassing.
What are the 3 names?
Yeah. I was brave. DJ Carsten Klein.
Okay.
But I never say DJ Carsten Klein. I always want to say Carsten Klein, not DJ Carsten Klein. And I hide behind the pop snob identity, of course. And in my music, I'm so-so. So-so. Yeah. Which has all kinds of reasons. And it's typographically gorgeous. SO is always just, it has to work typographically, of course.
So that I'll definitely be stealing the no typography is a typographic choice. I mean,
that comes from my parents when I did a book, and they said, "Oh, we didn't know you made all those pictures." I said, "Oh God, you still don't know what I'm doing." I designed, don't do the pictures. I designed the book. Yeah, but it doesn't have any page numbers. And I said, "That's a choice." It's not a work. Anyway, yeah, it is a choice. Everything is a choice, and the less you use, and the less expression in the kind of Pinterest sense you use, the more every little comma counts. A half a millimeter is a big measure in my world. So I can work on that for like 10 hours, no problem.
I was actually going to ask a question around typography, but I think you answered it inside Connor's question. So I think I might just default to, what are your 5 favorite typefaces that you suggested you might have?
The second I said it, I worried that somebody would ask me this. So I tried to not start off with Helvetica, so I'll say Futura, Accidents Grotesque, Franklin Gothic, condensed, gorgeous. Yeah, Helvetica. It's, I mean, you can do so. I mean, I still want to do 3 years with my students of just use one typeface, and you can see you can do so much with one typeface.
Mm-hmm.
But that's near the pond, and it's maybe a bit too extreme, but you know what I mean. Those were 4 or 5 typefaces.
It was 4.
VAG rounded is a very VAG rounded is a very it's never used. I don't understand why. I use it sometimes.
Obviously, you moved to all of these different cities. What was the catalyst that kind of ended up being, this is enough of the city for me, I'm now going to move on to the next one? There must have been a moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's of course the first city you don't choose, or else I would have chosen London, including Top of the Pops and Smash Hits. I moved to London in 98, 99. And then a friend of mine said, "We can go to Top of the Pops," and I was there. But of course, I was at an age where I realized it's not what it's cracked up to be, really. So it wasn't complete disillusional. I just had to be there once. So the first city, big deal. And then it was between Düsseldorf in Germany and Enschede, which are both the same distance. But back in the 90s, in the German bachelor degrees were still kind of, you do a logo, you do a letterhead, and that's that. Whereas in Enschede, in East Holland, where I now also teach, it seemed more open, and I needed that because I kind of realized I'm already quite rigid, and I like my rulers, and I have to shake it up maybe a little bit, and that was, I think, maybe a good decision, because back in '99 to do a final degree with a film in graphic design was unusual. Nowadays, I teach the same thing that I was taught back then, but it's called cross-media design because obviously it's not only about printed matters anymore. We've moved on from that. But I think in the essence, the typography, like I said in the presentation, I don't think that will ever go. You always have to have some bits of type. And the less type you have available, the more essential is that you set it right and you choose the right typeface, etc. Amen. Oh, moving to cities. Then I moved to London because I had to, because that was just a no-brainer. And everybody was there that I adored in terms of visuals and audio and pop and everything. So I had to move there, and moving away from London wasn't something against London. It was just because I had connections to Amsterdam because of my study and because I spoke Dutch already. So I went to Amsterdam every half year or so. And then that was kind of when laptops came up and Wi-Fi. And I thought I can do my work, which I do on my own from a laptop, from a second place in Amsterdam. So I had that for a year. But then after 12 months, it kind of dawned on me that I'm far more in Amsterdam than in London, and nothing against London at all. It was just, it's a small city scale, Amsterdam, but it has everything kind of that you need or have time for. Because I love London and all the museums, but do I ever go when I live there? That's a question to you guys. And I wonder. I only have so many hours in a day. I'll go back in 2 weeks and I can't wait. But I'm very happy in Amsterdam. But I never say never. I mean, maybe I move back. First, something next year in terms of elections. I'm not going back like this with the current state of affairs.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. I just wanted to ask you what your sort of most memorable favorite project of everything you've done so far is.
Possibly, so many. Because I work on my own and it's a pretty one-on-one basis. So I don't work for Siemens or Philips because they think you need a whole floor of designers in order to design a new identity, which partly is true, but maybe a bit outdated. The Erasmus thing is pretty old, but I was amazed that I went in with my vision and vision 1B, but that's it. I didn't show a real alternative with Erasmus, and I just went for it, and I thought, wow. And it'll have influence on the whole region of students. And I do believe that, back to the campaign thing, if you grow up with a capital E around you and not some murky 1943 version of Erasmus, I hope that has an influence. Maybe that connects with some students every year, and then we have a whole army of Helvetica students coming up. One can dream. It would have influenced me, of course, like the record sleeve did. If my school building had this big E instead of the stuffy logo that we had, that would have made an impact, I hope. So in that sense, that's quite rewarding. And the Rammstein thing, because I would have never believed that they go with my audio track. I thought they'll just go, what the hell are you doing? How dare you? But they actually talked to me and they said, oh, you did the audio as well. That had craftwork qualities. It's like, oh, okay. Thank you. I'll take that term. That was a nice right up my street comment.
First and foremost, I know that you don't do these, and I know you and I had a dialogue about this being quite a rare occurrence. So the fact that everyone here has had the honor of hearing you speak, for me is a real privilege. So thank you for taking the time. Secondly, please do come and visit us in London. It would be a privilege to have a little bit of a chat about you and be schooled on music knowledge. Yeah, I've really enjoyed our small opportunity of speaking with each other, and I hope that we can see you when you come to London.
I will definitely pop back.
Perfect.
Super nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.